Oh my God, I love Josh Murdy talking about braising vocals. He DM'd me that yesterday. What was that? I was re-listening to the Phoebe Bridgers Punisher album 2 nights ago. I think it was Sunday night. I was going on a walk in my hood before going to bed, and I actually thought that was a good equation. Like, a lot of her vocals are super braised in a fine white wine. I don't know about red wine. It's just like the reverb comes and goes. Like, that's the Ethan Gruska magic. Shout out to the homie Ethan. Like, the way that the vocals like feeling really, really dry, and it gets louder and bigger, and the verb comes up around on certain notes to evoke a new emotion. Like, that's braising. That's slowly deciding your vocal production. That's not just fucking searing it and saying it's loud pop. And that record is getting so much love. She's an amazing artist, getting so much love, and that vocal is braised, slow and low.
The way you talked about it reminded me of console mixing, and I was with another producer, and he was an older guy who was talking about pre-auto-tune records, where when they have pre-auto-tune, but in the era of hardware like H3000s, how they would hand tune vocals in particular notes, where vocal come up and they just to actually make it happen. I think about
Lauper records.
Lots of tons of records.
But specifically, like, you can hear it. You can hear it come up, and like the delays catch on to words that help the intonation feel a little more forgiving, right?
Yeah. So my question for you was, do you do much, or how do you think about, and the Phoebe Bridgers stuff made me think about that, this idea of physically writing things, performing things in a mix. Does that happen much anymore?
I used to. I don't anymore, but I definitely do that with effects.
You'll
I've been doing that with effects.
You'll draw things in and make things.
Since I was 16.
Yeah.
And like learned what a psychedelic was. That got me into like, oh, that word is referring to outer space, so let me take you out of space for a minute. Like, let's add a throw here. Just like let the lyric tell you, where to take an effect. That's how I feel about that. I clip gain vocals and do some writing, but it's mostly clip gaining into saturation, because I think if you clip gain instead of writing after, you're going to get more aggression into a saturator. Like I've found ways to do that.
You know what I did recently? I was clip gaining a vocal stem that I received. I was finishing a production, and I actually clip gained some of the words down, some of the words themselves, which I hadn't really done much before.
Get more feel, more
to make it actually, so it's like a instead of like bah, 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 right in your face. I just, clip gaining doesn't have to be evening things out. Also, it can be actually making things more dynamic.
Yo, Diego, I want to do a masterclass too. Reach out to masterclass, and I'll do one.
Do an actual masterclass.
Making
records.
Yeah, I want to do that. I don't know how to do the Twitch thing with the screen share yet, and I don't know if I want to do that, but I might do that. I don't know. Maybe I'll.
My thought on that, at least from my end, because there's been some questions about that from my end as well, that as soon as there's still one or two things in the pipeline potentially that that we might work on together in the near future. And I think if that ends up coming up, we should talk to the artist and say, hey, can we live stream this mix? And I can talk about the production. We can do the mix, that sort of thing. I thought that'd be cool.
Yeah. I think we should do that.
I don't know. There's all these comments in here.
The talk rhythm John was talking about, clip gaining. Yeah. In talk, like the hi-hat and the way the synth bounces around is clip gain, because it's a loop. So I was able to do it to the main loop, and get the swing, like, because the rough mix had a SSL comp on the mix bus that was just making it and I was like, that's cool if you're EDM, but I want to get that R&B lean. So I clip gain things down and certain things up, and that was very intentional. And I do that on everything. So that to me is more interesting than the riding the fader. I like to get the vocal dense and in place, like at 0. And I've talked about this earlier. I don't like to put my faders above 0 ever. So that people would probably push back on that, and like their automation is their game. I think there's different ways to automate when it's saturation, EQ boosts in choruses instead of raising the vocal in the chorus. I just like to think a little bit different than that approach.
We got about, I don't know, we got a couple minutes left. I think we kind of covered a lot of the main stuff.
Any other examples of braising vocals?
Braising vocals.
I just think everyone should listen to the vocal effects on the Phoebe Bridgers record. Listen to it for the emotional content as well and how great of a performance it is, but listen to it as an engineer as well. There's something really special about the focal point of the forward to backward motion of the vocal that is really, like, I've been talking about it on every episode with you, and they're executing it perfectly. And so that's something to study. That's homework.
And who mixed it?
Honestly, I looked up the name last night. I think it's Tony Berg's engineer. Tony Berg co-produced it with Ian Gruska. And I forgot. I feel bad that I don't know his name, but it's the engineer that works out of their studio and does everything, I'm pretty sure, with them. And
shout out Tony Berg, who gave me advice. I haven't talked to in a few years, but gave me advice on a couple of my guitar purchases. Tony Berg is a Los Angeles legend. He's
a real one.
Shout out Tony Berg.
So that record is homework for everybody to go listen to. It's stunning.